going to be at 10,000 people in the next few years. And the bigger we get, the more unwieldy this whole process comes. I think we can, if we get it done in time, we can get on the November ballot, if I'm correct. And then, and I have 2 people that are interested in being on the committee to do the town charter. And Maureen is willing to help, which I think would be a great asset, whatever that takes to get that done and steer the committee in the right direction. We can't have, as board members, we can't put our input into it. But I think with her help, it could be steered to make a reasonable charter that we can live with and or let us make our own decisions without having to ask permission. That's basically my spiel, which has been from the get-go. That's where I'm going to stop. Let you guys go on, because I know there's some dissension in the board about the timing.
Trustee Early?
I feel we'll be lucky if we get 9, let alone 11.
Are you in favor of moving forward with it, or?
Yes.
Anything else?
No.
Trustee Doherty?
I don't think we had really good turnout for kind of the work session that we had. So I think it's going to be exceedingly difficult to get enough people that are interested and would be a benefit to the town as well. So I would suggest we table it for now.
Trustee Strack?
My initial reaction was to really have another work session and try to ask the citizens to come and see if we get any more. I don't know if that's on the table or not. Other than that, you know, would you consider any of the board being on that commission?
I don't think we can.
Hadn't there been some talk that you can?
2 elected offices in the jurisdiction, and I'll be honest with you, there's a split amongst attorneys as to whether or not, because you are elected to a charter commission post, but that's the same as an elected office. So you'll find that there are communities that have done both. And there's been no challenge that you know, resulted in any sort of reported opinion on that would, frankly, anybody really chattering about it on listservs or anything else. So.
If we were home rule, would it help us stand up against the oil companies any better? Could we delay them even longer, or
so
can we tell
when
them
the
no?
home rule, matters of pure statewide concern, which unfortunately in the oil and gas world, the state has really grabbed that for themselves, are not something that you'll have a whole lot of leeway on. That's the short answer on that.
Yeah, I'm in favor of moving forward on them.
And I think my thoughts, I'd kind of waffled back and forth on whether we should move forward, and I kind of lean at this point towards it. My suggestion would be that we put the election of commissioners on the November 2019 ballot and the charter on the November 2020 ballot. I think that gives us the best chance at getting high citizen turnout for the actual consideration of the charter. And I think I would only really support it under that condition. The other benefit of that, I think, is it does give us an opportunity to do maybe 1 or 2 more who's interested in the sessions between now and, you know, summer of next year, to try and drum up some more support and make sure we actually have enough people to fill out a 9 or 11 person commission. So that would be my suggestion. I don't know what the board's feelings are on that, or if they share.
Move forward with this deal, I'll compromise.
What did you say?
I said, if we move forward with this, I'll compromise. I'm in.
All right.
So I mean, do we have kind of a consensus on some plan? Everyone likes my plan?
I think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
You know, gives us a chance
like
to
it,
get
but I'll cave
more
into it.
involvement.
Cool. So I think that sounds like our general consensus,
This election.
except Trustee Doherty, who's against it.
No, I'm fine with that. That sounds fine.
A year from now, I understand, but we need to get, we're gonna have a couple more meetings and some other stuff.
Yeah.
I wanna be ready to hit the ground running when it's time to put this on the ballot next year.
Yeah.
I
And
guess one thought though on that is if we continue to have meetings where 2 people show up and one of them's a board member, I think this still needs consideration.
yeah. Well, there were, I will say there was more than that. It wasn't enough for a commission, but it was 6 or 7. So, but I agree, and I think maybe it's best that, I don't know, maybe we do one a quarter from now until next summer, and staff doesn't necessarily need to be there. It can be board-driven, and we can just invite people to come, kind of give them a general overview and see who's interested.
And I will say that probably 80% of the towns, even Alma, with its 250 people, is home rule.
Yeah.
Go to HOA meetings and things, that's maybe something you can in the meantime try to muster.
HOA meetings get even less. Okay. So, as long as everyone sounds in agreement, that's the direction we'll give Steve and Maureen, I think.
Okay.
We'll bring that back next March, where you start thinking about taking formal action on it, because we'll need to prepare a little in advance for the elections.
I'd like to prepare a little in advance too for the meetings. I don't know how we go about that, but schedule a meeting for like March.
Yeah. I don't think that's gonna take his formal action now, from us
Okay.
just scheduling the meetings. Okay. Next on the action item list is water agreements, the Silver Peaks East water agreement. Mr. Jeffords.
Good evening. I didn't send you the agreement again because I didn't want to force you to read another draft. But after our last meeting, we did revise the agreement pursuant to the direction that we had. If you recall, the issue that we're hung up on is the cost of the augmentation stations to get the water back to the river. And so we've been working on that problem. We've been talking with Fort Lupton about the use of their augmentation station. We did make a counter offer to them that we ran by Steve and Maureen and Chris. We did that on June 5th. We're still waiting for their response to that counter offer. Well, basically, we're trying to give more money up front so that the annual expenses to the town are lower. So we're waiting to see what kind of a response we have on that. You may recall the Fulton ditch is divided into 3 sections, and the current policy of the ditch company is that you have to return the water in the same section where it was historically used. And so you need to use an aug station in section 2 and section 3. That's where the water is from. Except that Central has an aug station in the first section, and they have a contract with the ditch company that allows them a certain amount of water that can come from anywhere on the ditch to be delivered through that structure. So we're also talking with them about an agreement. We're also talking to Brighton about an agreement for their section 2 augmentation station. I don't think we're going to be able to get a permanent agreement there, but we may be able to get temporary agreements with any one of those parties. In talking with Central, another idea came up, either doing a long-term contract with them for just use of their stations, or a trade of water rights in return for a water contract from them to deliver water from Chatfield Reservoir. We thought we were going to get a draft of the contract a little while ago. We got it this evening, and so I looked at it very quickly. I had a nice conversation with their staff people. It is just a draft contract. They have to run it by their water committee. They have to run it by their board of directors. I told them, of course, we would have to do the same thing with you. So Chris and I and Steve and Maureen need to look over that contract and sit down with Central again and talk about it, because it's, reading it, you can tell it's just a draft. And there's a fair amount of work to do on that. In response to that, though, we also amended the draft water resource credit agreement so that the town would have the option of either getting permanent augmentation station agreements and pursuing all this through water court, or possibly trading the water to anybody, any other municipal provider in exchange for a contract, because we're thinking about this as an option. And this may take a while, so you may end up, if you approve Silver Peaks East replat and you approve the water agreement and we close and we start going through water court, we put in a provision that would allow you to pull that case out of water court if you were able to do this kind of a contract exchange. So we had to build in a little bit more flexibility. One of the other things in the agreement that you asked us to revisit was there was give and take on some fees. at the end, there's possibility of them having to pay more or you getting money back, and the suggestion was made, let's get the fees where we feel comfortable about them and have them so they're just final. And we don't have to worry about that, chasing money or them getting money back. They've agreed to that. We've put that in the agreement. But because we still don't have, there's one fee that's not set, and that's the litigation fee in water court. There's a deposit that they have to make. If we get it through water court for less than that, we give them that money back, what's left. If it costs more, they do have to pay more. So that one we didn't cap or didn't put the risk on you. There's, let me see, there's one other thing about that. Oh, in regard to that augmentation station fee, because we still don't know the price, they proposed to, we had proposed a fee, and then I told you I didn't even like the fee I proposed. They acknowledged that there's a problem there. They've proposed, and we put it in the draft agreement, potentially substantial higher payment by them, if necessary. So we didn't just greatly increase that fee and say that's it, but they did say they would pay substantially more. We put a dollar figure on that. And so it's somewhere between the fee we asked for and this higher fee. So it does put a cap. I think with all of the other fees that are involved in the agreement, that's probably as far as we can get unless we leave that completely open. I think it does a really good job of protecting the town. It gives them some certainty that if you approve the replat and if you approve the actual agreement, I think there's adequate protection to the town. But we can discuss the particulars of that. Our plan is to bring this agreement back to you at a future meeting when you're considering the replat approval. We bring the water agreement back at that time, and you can see the changes that we made, and you can ask any questions about that agreement. We get it to you far enough ahead of time so you have a chance to read it and come to us with questions. So that's our plan, and that's why I didn't bring it to you tonight. So that's all I have on that contract. Except, well, there's one other thing. The Burlington ditch also requires an augmentation station. And we've looked into that. It's difficult to find one, but the Frico Burlington companies, they do have a bypass structure up near their head gate where water can be delivered into the ditch and then delivered back to the river. That could potentially be used as this kind of an augmentation station. And Chris has talked to Frico about that. And we're going to explore that further, and that may be the way to get this water back to the river. It's something we've looked at in the past for the town because it's also a structure that you need to use or may need to use to get the Bell Mountain water delivered past the Frico headgate. In the springtime or in the winter, sometimes the river flows are low and Frico is taking every drop out of the river right there. And if you can't deliver your Bell Mountain water past them, then your augmentation plan can't work. You lose some of your delivery. So there's an interest in the town in getting an agreement on that structure anyways. And if we can get that agreement and include the ability to take the Burlington-Wellington water through there and have the developer pay for that as part of this fee, then that can solve two problems for you. The developer wouldn't be paying for your Bell Mountain deliveries, but would pay for their smaller Burlington-Wellington deliveries. And Chris is going to talk to you on the other agenda item about the storage agreement, and I think that this may also play into that storage agreement. So that's all I have on this particular agenda item.
Questions, Trustee Yap?
No questions. I'll save my comments on Silver Peaks until the trustee comments.
Trustee Doherty?
I have nothing. Thank you.
Trustee Strong?
All right, as usual, I'm confused here. So one augmentation was to go through Central and come through Chatfield, which would help. If you mix that with the Bell Mountain and Frico, kind of makes sense, doesn't it then?
For that bypass structure?
Yeah.
Yes.
So rather than using the Fulton ditch and making it permanent or an exchange in the gate in section 2 or 3, we would just come from Chatfield out and around.
that's one of the options that we're looking at, yes. And that would could replace the need for those other augmentation stations.
Okay, that kind of makes sense to me because it's already pretty much in existence and they're putting a lot of water in Chatfield.
The cost is what we have to look at, and the
Yeah.
firmness of that yield
Sure.
to the town. So,
All right, thank you.
Trustee Early?
Nothing?
I didn't have anything. Thanks for the
okay,
update, though.
thank you. So Chris is going to handle the other, right?
Thank you. You recall probably 8 to 10 months ago, we came and spoke to you about the concept of a swap of reservoir storage capacity between the 400 acre feet of storage space that the town owns in United Reservoir with Bar Lake Storage, which FRICO has. Just to provide a little bit of background, the town has the water there in United Reservoir, but the town's water is ultimately delivered via the United Pipeline over to Bar Lake, where it needs to be held for a period of time, and at which it's released to the BB draw for our augmentation deliveries. The rates at which we need to move water from United Reservoir over to Bar Lake are somewhat problematic in terms of their pretty low flow rates. However, the pumping infrastructure operates at much higher flow rates, which all results in a need on the town's part to have some operational storage in Bar Lake to make, kind of relatively small capacity releases to the BB draw. In other words, the town has a need for some storage space over in Bar Lake. The plumbing configuration right now, which is hopefully a temporary concern, is such that there's pumps when water's being delivered from the South Platte River. It can either go to Bar Lake or it can go to United Reservoir, but not both. So there are times when FRICO is diverting water to Bar Lake, and when the town wants to divert its share of water to United Reservoir, those two things cannot happen at the same time because of current plumbing constraints. So that's another concern, which hopefully will go away when United gets around to improving some of the pumping infrastructure over in these reservoir facilities. But in the meantime, that's an operational constraint which has caused the town's water to end up over in Bar Lake instead of United Reservoir just because of some of these plumbing constraints. So what FRICO would like to do, FRICO's need is to essentially have the flexibility to move water back and forth between the two reservoirs, essentially have a swap of capacity that would not necessarily be the town ending up with a firm commitment to storage space in Bar Lake, but having the flexibility to move water back and forth. But depending on how the agreements come together, it could be that the town ends up with an actual storage capacity, be it permanent or short-term over in Bar Lake, and then have the option to move water back and forth, largely based on FRICO's operational needs. For example, when they're trying to fill up Bar Lake, times like that, they would want Lac Bouilly's water back over in United Reservoir, but then there are times when they're diverting over at the South Platte where they'd want Lac Bouilly's water over in Bar Lake. So there's some mutual interests here. FRICO argues that the town, by entering into an agreement, has the opportunity to save on some fees that FRICO feels justified in charging for the pumping operations. By establishing one of these agreements, the town could essentially paper book water back and forth instead of physically pumping it back and forth, which saves on electrical cost and some of the operational costs, moving physical molecules of water over to Bar Lake. So it's something that FRICO is pushing, and they emphasize some of these operational flexibilities that the town can gain. And it's true. I mean, I think there is in some respects win-wins on both parts, but as we've talked about before, Bar Lake is more leaky than is United Reservoir, and that's something that we need to balance. So our current proposal and thinking, and we need to work through the details, is to pursue a short-term agreement with FRICO to, one, just get the process up and running and see how it works, but also with the mindset that there's gonna be some of these plumbing changes that are gonna come to fruition in hopefully the near future, which will change the need of some of these operational flexibilities. As far as the quantity of water is concerned, in discussions with FRICO, they've essentially suggested that it's going to maximize their flexibility to have the ability to move all that water back and forth, but our suggestion is that we start small, maybe on the order of 50 to 100 acre feet in terms of the quantity that we'd be swapping back and forth. That quantity makes sense in terms of like monthly operational maximums for the town. 50 acre feet is on the order of magnitude of the amount that the town might need to move over to Bar Lake in any one given month. So we think there's somewhat justifiable merits for focusing on that type of quantity. So I think the next step is to have Steve chat with FRICO's attorney and essentially get the process going for drafting an agreement to make this happen. But we're seeking some feedback that the town wants to move forward with this conceptual agreement. And it is something that we're supportive of, but we need to have the appropriate protections in there for the town in terms of quantity, making sure that to the extent there are any fees imposed for additional amounts that are moved around outside of this agreement, that they're reasonable and justifiable and so forth.
Questions?
Short-term, Chris, are you talking about just like a pilot program?
I'm thinking probably on the order of a 3 to 5 year agreement, as opposed to something permanent. Steve, I don't know if that's.
I think that's right. I think that's what FICO was considering as well.
Questions or comments, Trustee Early?
No.
Trustee Strapp?
So you do a 50 acre foot monthly for 5 years to see how it worked?
Well, I think it would be a quantity, let's just say for discussion purposes that it is 50 acre feet. And that quantity of water we essentially have queued up for flexible movement of water between the two storage vessels. I don't view it as, the town taking possession of 50 acre feet over in Bar Lake, but frankly, depending on how the agreements become structured, it could end up a little bit more that way.
It seems like you should be able to move 400 feet each way. They charge us for pumping it one direction, and logically, maybe we could charge them for pumping it the other way, so it's kind of a wash. Maybe they wouldn't want to charge us at all. So if we have 400 feet and United and say shipped it over there, whatever the number was, how much loss are we going to have for evaporation or seepage?
Well, that's one of the primary reasons that I'm suggesting we start with a fraction of that 400. But it's, on the order of 2.5 times the loss rate that would be incurred in Bar instead of United. I mean, if it weren't for that loss rate, we'd be advocating for, sure, let's, maximize the flexibility between both parties to move this water around. But that's the part that becomes detrimental to the town, is that we would essentially incur some losses. And frankly, what we're balancing here is some loss of water out of storage with the fees that could be incurred by pumping water over in small quantities. And that's really, I think, the operational balance that we need to focus on. So.
Thank you.
Trustee Doherty? Trustee At?
I guess if they move it on paper, they actually move it, it doesn't make any difference to me, as long as we minimize our evaporation losses and leakage losses and the cost of the town. I mean, they're the professionals that do this, so as long as they know how to negotiate to keep our costs down and our losses at a minimum, that's fine with me. I don't have any objection.
And I share that thought.
Okay, good.
Anything else?
Bar Lake's a good recharge pond, isn't it?
That's the optimistic way to look at it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is an executive session pursuant to Colorado Revised Statute Section 24-6-402, Parens 4, Parens B, with town council for legal advice on imposing impact fees for the benefit of fire districts. And I've posted that.
I'm wondering if the board would be open to switching 8 and 9 around and letting the staff handle their comments early so we don't have to wait here.
That sounds appropriate to me. So we'll move to staff comments, staff reports, Police Chief McQuay.
Just a few highlights on my report. The windshield was fixed today on our fairly well hail damaged cars. So that's good. And when I wrote this, I was told that we had like 10 or 12 applicants, or that's what my understanding was. We do have 7 applicants, so we're looking for more if people are interested or know anybody who wants to take part in the Citizens Academy. I don't really have anything else to add, unless you have any questions about anything on my report, or just any questions generally for the police department or anything.
Questions or comments? Anyone? Don't see any. Okay. Next up, Public Works.
Just a couple of quick comments. We're in full swing, full season, mowing, park maintenance. Good thing is we're fully staffed at this point. We also added 1 seasonal employee, just started last week or a week and a half ago. Other than that, everything's on track and just plugging along. If you have any questions.
Questions or comments from anyone?
Questions and comments.
Trustee Stroud?
I see you getting some quotes to redesign the inlet structures in Lockwood Park.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great idea.
Oh,
I mean, if you think about it, you can take, each one of those has 3 pipes going to one structure. You could pour concrete around it or connect all 3 of them, put like a stove pipe coming out of it with a grill on it for the overflow, and keep the trash out of it.
Yep.
It would flow water, it would end a lot of the problems, so I was really encouraged to see that.
well, thank you. And I was encouraged by your tour on my first week
Oh,
here.
first day on the job.
My first day on the job, and since then I've been thinking about it, and actually we're looking at a couple of different designs with a small weir, catches the debris, it's got a grate, so we can shovel this stuff out, and, you know.
Yeah, it's a tough job, and it's the dirtiest job in town, too. And it's a great idea,
Thanks.
if you ask me, so. Want me to make a motion for it?
Anything else?
That's all, thank you.
Trustee Doherty?
I have nothing, thank you.
Trustee Abt?
Nothing, thanks.
And I don't have anything other than to say town's looking really good, and thanks for taking charge on County Road 2.
Mayor Pro Tem Lofgren.
Yeah.
If I can. Another comment that I wanted to make was that Eric, our code enforcement officer, has finished the police academy at Ames, and I just appointed him as a reserve police officer yesterday. So if you see him in a uniform hanging out with the other police officers, that's why. And we also hired one other, well, not hired, they're volunteer, but we also appointed one other reserve police officer. So we have 4 reserves now.
Is he still serving as code enforcement as well?
He is.
Cool.
Yeah, that's totally a voluntary on his own time thing. So he shouldn't be out doing police stuff on his paid code enforcement time.
Next up is report from Water Wastewater.
I wish I could get some volunteers. Nobody wants to go do what we do voluntarily. Everything's running well as far as the plant goes. You know, the water plant's pretty close to being done. We got a few things that need to be moved around, but we're making water, and all the upgrades that were needed from the last sanitary survey inspection have been completed. So I'm encouraged that they're doing a good job, and to be frank, they're honest. So you kind of like that in those guys. The booster station, finally United Power set the meter the other day. We installed our pressure gauges, so now we need to hypochlorinate it, you know, to get it cleaned and flushed, and then get it tested. I can tell you that won't happen until after the 4th of July, just because we don't like starting up big pieces of equipment like that around holidays or weekends, so we'll wait until the following week to put it online, but it's ready to go. Elevated storage tank, we met last week, or 2 weeks ago, and that was cool. I liked that. I thought it was a pretty good design, initial design. Now to come back to you guys to discuss what sizes and how we can do it, but we had a really good discussion on it. Let's see, other than that, let's see, wastewater. We are finished with all the cleaning and videoing, except we have 2,500 feet from the start of the tree farm back to the plant, but we've already burned up that 34,000, so the last little bit would be like an extra $550 to finish that out, if it was all right, to go ahead and do that. And then we're gonna have the CMAR on Thursday. I'm looking forward to that. I had long conversations with JVA up at the CML. It was nice seeing some of you guys up there. I'm sorry I didn't bring any extra chocolate toilets for you guys. Okay. I will bring some, I'll bring some on Thursday, and then as you stop in, right, somebody will have you one. If you have any questions for me, fire away. Otherwise, I was going to introduce, as you know, Jeff left us on June 1st. I'd like to introduce Carl Heil, who will be replacing Jeff. I worked with Carl back when I worked for City County in Broomfield in '98, and then unfortunately I got booted up to Public Works, so I didn't get to hang out with him anymore after a couple years. And then he worked with Jeff at St. Vrain for 3 years. Was it 3 years?
2.5.
2.5. And so we've all known each other for a long time, and we're really glad to have Carl around because he can jump right in and know exactly what we're doing. You want to say anything about?
Oh, no, I wouldn't want to say anything about that. I look happy, I'm happy to work for you guys. Look forward to working with you.
Yeah.
Questions or comments for you? Yes, Trent?
You and I had talked a little bit about, some of the drugs and the opioids that are going through our sewer systems. So I went to that class there at CML, and we talked, a man from La Junta came over and talked to me that they actually have a device that looks like a suitcase that you can lower it down into a manhole and tell where these opioids and drugs are you can narrow it down as you work your way through the residential areas.
Oh, yeah.
That was pretty
That was
impressive.
developed in Berkeley, University of California, Berkeley, believe it or not. I mean, it would make sense. But yeah, that's been around for a while, but it's extremely expensive. And, but you could get pretty close if there was like, if we were seeing things, for us, it's when the meth lab's dumped. That's the thing that'll nail you the most because of the acid that they use to break it down, I guess. But opioids, all of us don't keep that in your body, right? It flushes out with your waste. I would bet within 10 years we'll have to treat for it. Just because, they found single sex, or I don't know if you call them Aphrodite, fish in the South Platte downstream from Metro. Same in Littleton, Englewood. And a lot of it is, they've improved their treatment. You hear about all the time about the $1.36 billion that they're spending. A lot of that will help improve that. But at the end of the day, I can guarantee you that we're going to filter that water and use advanced oxidation processes to destroy it. And that's not going to be cheap. It will definitely not be cheap. So you'll have a water plant on the end, and then there'll be probably another process where you use UV and hydrogen peroxide to finish it off, and then out it'll go. So right now, that's what Aurora does to all the water that they take off of those wells downstream from Bar Lake, because it's in there. That's exactly how they take care of it. So and we know that that's very effective, like 99.99999% effective. But if you've seen what it takes to do that, you better get your checkbook out, because it's not going to be cheap.
Sorry, I asked. Also, it'd be nice maybe if we could set up some tours of the booster station, the water.
As soon as they clean out over here, which should be within the next 30 days, we'll have a tour, and then the booster station will be up and running. And by all means. And whether you want to do it on a Saturday, I don't care. You just tell me what time you guys want to be doing it in the daylight. I'll be there.
I'd sure be up for it.
Yeah, I mean, you guys know you have my number. If you just wanted to see it, call me up.
All right.
Cool. I mean, I'll break away. I don't like sitting in the office anymore, and you guys do.
Anyone else?
I thought we mentioned that we already decided the tank's gonna be 2 million gallons, you said, about sizes and stuff.
Well, when we looked at the side thing, they'll give you they'll show you exactly what it will look like.
Okay.
I can see goods and bad about it. And when we get to that discussion, I'll give you my opinions.
Okay.
We have a work session on that. Go ahead.
Yeah.
We're, if, it wasn't mine, but, we're gonna do that work session after the Board of Adjustment in 2 weeks. There's the Board of Adjustment meeting on July 10th, and following it,
Yeah,
we're
that's
gonna
what
be
we saw.
invite for a work
That's what's
session
gonna
on the
be.
water
Yeah.
solution. So we are gonna kind of revisit the size, just to kind of talk through. it
Give
a
you
little
some
bit
good
more.
points and bad points. You need to know pros and cons of everything.
And we're gonna look at the site and everything, but we are gonna
Right,
look at that.
you do.
Okay.
And I'll be there to help you and make an informed decision.
Okay.
Right, I mean, that's what you pay me for.
Ryan will be here, Mandy will be here, and
Yeah.
just talk about it a little bit more again.
Well, we're just looking for less investment in the future. The more we can do now.
Oh,
the
by all
cheaper everything
means.
else. Yeah,
And use that site wisely,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Definitely. I'm all about saving money.
okay.
Wayne, if you have a higher air ratio, say in that tank,
Mm-hmm.
just sitting there, does it create any kind of excess bacteria growth?
Well, no, because we keep enough chlorine in there that you wouldn't see. Now, when I say that, okay, in that zone between where the water and the metal is, where it's humid, yes, you can still, even with that, just like you can inside a regular pipe that carries water, that water's going through it, right? Bacteria will grow just about on anything, and it's pretty resilient. The good news is if it falls off, it's gonna land in water that's got chlorine, and then it disinfects it. That's why you carry a residual, actually, Larry, is because of bacteria. If you ever, that's why, like, if we ever lose water pressure, that's a boil water advisory, because all the bacteria that grows inside that pipe now just fell off the wall because the pressure's holding it on. And then you lose that pressure, then it goes into the water line, and then when you do repressurize it, well, it's not magic, it's not go back to against the wall, now it's in the pipe. So then the only way you can do that is make it a swimming pool water for 24 hours, flush it out and test. So that's, believe it or not, booster stations, and when we do, that's why that stuff is important. Not just because we're delivering water to your house, but it's part of public health and providing you safe drinking water. If you lose pressure, that's a big, that's like, oh no. And trust me, I've been on TV for that, and it's not fun. Even though I didn't cause it, but.
Thank you. Anything
Thank
else? Thank you, and welcome.
Drinking out of a fire hose right now.
Yeah. Town administrator report.
Sam?
First, so High Plains, thank you. High Plains Library District, they have, the Hudson High Plains Library District has seen the survey that went out. I'm meeting with them. Is it my computer? I don't think it's my computer. Is it that? I don't know. I think so. Anyway, so they did see the survey. I'm meeting with them on July 18th to review, and Trustee Ott brought to my attention before the meeting started that there seems to be a possible miscommunication going on between the High Plains Library District and the Hudson High Plains Library District on the collaboration that's going on between Lock Buoy and Hudson right now. So I'll be looking into that tomorrow, just to clear that up and make sure everyone's on the same page about the involvement that's happening between both parties. Wayne touched on most of the water stuff just because usually he does that when he's here, and then I do it separately when he's not here, but since we only had one meeting this month, I did throw it on my report. I don't know that there's really anything to specify. I believe the booster station startup is scheduled for July 9th right now, and as far as the water treatment plant goes, we did accept substantial completion on the RO portion only, and they're slated to finish up either the second or third week of July. And just as far as County Road 2 main, we're still demobilized on that just because we're waiting for permission from FRICO to go ahead and cross the ditch. There is water in there right now if you drive by that way. And then on wastewater treatment plant, like Wayne said, we're doing the CMAR GMP meeting on Thursday, and the goal is to have everything tightened up and presented at the July board meeting on the 17th. And that's it for me. Any questions?
Questions from anyone?
Send me an email about that CMR meeting so I can be there on Thursday.
Okay.
Like it's next on it, okay?
What is our Board of Adjustment meeting on the 10th for?
It's a shed violation.
Oh, okay. Okay, anything else? Mr. Stamey?
So we do have another AdCog meeting Thursday evening with Trustee Strzok and Mayor Pro Tem Lofgren. Been attending those. We did submit we worked and put together a request that's now submitted to Weld County for a cost-sharing proposal for improvements at the interchange on the traffic control. So that's been sent to Weld County now, and also I'm sure you'll see that on the discussion items on the meeting Thursday night. Unless you have any other questions on my report, then I can.
Questions? Yeah. Ms. Early?
The information on the wells that are going in,
In Brighton?
48 wells are going in that little space. And we've got 14 to 17 just on across 76 where the new business park is. We've got 14 just to the west side of Silver Peaks. Is that going to affect our water quality in the aquifers?
The well site in town, we have a water quality component associated with their approval on well monitoring.
For the 48 that are going in? That's an awful lot of wells in a little
No,
space.
for the ones that we have.
No, I'm talking
I
about the
know.
ones that surround us.
I know.
Yeah.
I don't know what Brighton has required their well operations to do. You know, Brighton's in the same aquifer as we are.
Well, I just want to make sure we're protected.
Mhm.
So that was my big question on that.
I'm pretty sure Brighton also used Matt Sura, so I'd imagine they have similar terms. to
Same
what we
thing?
had.
They are
I don't
using-
know that, but
Yeah,
I'd
they are
imagine.
using that sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah, I talked to JW. He wants a copy of all that stuff at the aquifer, and we're going to try to get a copy of the state's water master plan, and they have a handbook too. And so we are going to share that information or something. So they're pretty concerned about that. But you know, this well thing seems to be the new thing for any new housing district to me. At one point, I thought that so you develop this special district and you get all your buddies to be on the board because they all own a little piece of that land, and then you open up your mineral rights or lease them out, and it gives you, which I thought was the special district operating money, but it actually goes to the landowner. So anytime you open up a new housing project, you might as well just open up the doors to the oil company and take all that money in, because you're giving away houses there. This was something I wanted to ask. So for instance, our little Crestone thing, we've given up 150 houses. I wouldn't think so, because you never see anything like those kind of facilities. But so you've lost, 100 PIF fees. You know, every time you let an oil company or something come in. So it just seems like this is the new norm, is to put one of these in every new filing or every new phase. So I hope it's not, but it sure seems like it, because it's a great way to, establish operating capital for yourself.
Anything else? No, and I don't have anything. Thank you for your report. Now we'll do our executive session. I have to pull my little script. Okay. We'll go into an executive session pursuant to Colorado Revised Statute Section 24-6-402, Parens 4, Parens B, with town council for legal advice on imposing impact fees for the benefit of fire districts. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Okay. I move to executive session pursuant to CRS Section 24-6-402, Parens B, Parens 4, Parens B, the town council for legal advice on imposing impact fees for the benefit of fire districts.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Trustee Early,
Yes.
Trustee Straw.
Yes.
Trustee Ott.
Yes.
Trustee Doherty.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lofgren.
Yes, the motion carries. So we will go into executive session. Are we streaming still? So we need to go in there.
Why don't you stay here?
This is your thing.
We talked about it in this room.